everyone needs to realize that discipline is like a rubber band. It stretches, right? It stretches. Sometimes it's like really, really tough and really flexed and you're good to go. Other times it's a little flimsy. It's a little flimsy and that's okay. But do you know what you need to do to get it strong again?
Bedros, do you believe that discipline equals freedom?
Discipline equals freedom.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, that's Jocko's phrase, and it absolutely will change your life when you have personal discipline, when you are able to finally follow through on everything that you know you should do that's holding you back right now. So, Bedros, how has discipline been a cornerstone for you as a man, as a leader, as a fitness person, and as an entrepreneur?
So I put up a post about a month and a half ago on the old Instagrams, and I said, discipline is a discipline. Discipline is a discipline that only a few are disciplined enough to have.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that is, one, profound when you think about it, that discipline is a discipline that only a few are disciplined enough to have. But two, the few who have it weren't born with it magically, acquired it through consistent work in an area. For me, it's literally been something that separated me and my companies from the competition. It's improved my marriage. It has, at 47, I'm in the best shape of my life. As a father, I'm consistently there for my kids, and one of the best conversations Andrew and I had recently in a hot tub was, he's like, hey Dad, I tried a joint and I want to let you know that I love you. I tried a joint and it's just not for me, but I didn't want to hide it from you. If I wasn't a disciplined father with him, meaning consistent with him, in not only punishing him when he did wrong, but also rewarding him and showing him the rights and wrongs of life, I would have never told my dad that I tried a joint. I would have smoked weed. Man, he would have beat the fuck out of me. I didn't trust it. I would have had that relationship with him. So all these things are a byproduct of discipline. And when I think about all the areas of my life when I was younger that I was like, oh man, I failed at that. Oh, I wasn't good at that thing. It was just a lack of discipline and lack of the consistency, follow through on a thing that helped me develop this characteristic of sticking through it and to it no matter what. It's a game changer. It's a separator.
So today you help, your franchisees have more discipline. You help your team members here at HQ have more discipline. You help men in the project, not the projects, the project, your Man Up project, Modern Day Night project, have more discipline. What's the first step in our viewers and listeners improving their discipline? Because they know they want it, they know they need it, but they haven't had the discipline of finding the discipline yet.
Yep. Identity.
Yeah.
Identity. Everyone who doesn't have discipline has created this false identity of themselves as, man, I'm just not a disciplined person. Well, if you keep saying I'm not a disciplined person, you just keep going further away from discipline.
Absolutely.
And
that goes for everything in life, because I told myself the wrong things, and
right.
Yeah, it holds back.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not meant to be an entrepreneur. Well, keep saying that and while trying to be an entrepreneur, and let's see how that turns out for you a decade from now. You're still going to be in the same spot. And so what I found, especially I found this through the project, as we run the project, these men come to us. And all men carry some level of, most men, I shouldn't say all men, most men carry some form of a false identity. That false identity comes from this shotgun blast that was delivered to their heart by their dad. When their dad said, you're stupid, you're not athletic, you're just always going to be fat and dumb and whatever it is. To hear that in your formidable years as a young man from your dad, because every young man looks up, or a young boy looks up to their dad or older brother for that rite of passage. And to hear that from that guy who all you want is their approval and validation. This is why most men will look at other men for approval and validation, because dad didn't give it to them, so they're still trying to fill that hollow spot. But if their identity is then dad said so, the man that I looked up to said so, and therefore I am, if you show up with that identity, you're never going to become the disciplined person. And so you first have to shed your false identity and say, who do I want to be known as? And you can rebuild yourself. Every man has the time and the ability to rebuild themselves. No one takes the pause to go, how do I want to rebuild myself? Or what do I want to rebuild myself into? Do I want to be a better entrepreneur, a better husband? Like the actual intent behind the action versus just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go work today. Now I'm gonna go work out, and so you're kind of robotically going through life, but not really having intention.
Yeah.
And so when the false identity is shed, and you decide that I'm gonna be this man, a man of discipline, where I'm gonna keep my word, because my word to myself is my reputation. The reputation that I have with myself is the highest thing that I could have with anybody. The relationship with myself is the highest thing I can have with anybody, and I want to have a great reputation with myself. And if I have a great reputation with myself, then everybody else, my reputation will precede me. Like Craig will never have to wonder about B's character.
Got it.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, I asked you for some feedback, and you said you gave the feedback great, like, hey, doing well here, here, and here. And one of the things you said, but you got to start doing better on, you're telling people you're going to do something, and then you no-show, or you skip out, or whatever it was. And I took that to heart, and it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to do two things. One, I'm not going to make promises that I know I'm not going to keep. And two, if I make the promise, then I'm going to keep the promise. And that was certainly, it ties into that identity, because I really, I want to be a man of integrity, and I want to be a man who keeps his promises, because if you keep your promises, you become a more confident person. So that was very, very helpful to me. And I think it goes along with one of the things that I believe is a cornerstone of discipline, which is clarity. Clarity. Man, it is very easy to chase a lot of things. And if you're chasing a lot of things, it's very easy to wear down a person's discipline. They might forget about some of the things that they want to do or trying to do, or they might not have the discipline of time, so they're not able to finish certain things, and they leave that to-do list incomplete. And so having clarity about what matters then allows you to put your focus on things. And if you're running around right now and you're trying to do a side hustle here and a side hustle there, and then do this, but you also want to be, out with your friends doing this, and you want to be doing this in the gym, and it's like there's too many things. And the clarity allows you to narrow it down to the focus. And that makes it easier, because you can't be disciplined in 19 things if you don't have any discipline in one thing right now. Right. So let's get disciplined around the things that matter the most. And when you mentioned before that a lot of men are out there just trying to impress other men, it's a good time for you to get clear about what really matters. Is it really that important to you to impress these other people? Why? Why do you think that it's important to impress other people, or these particular other people? Because does that really matter? If your vision in life is to be a great family man, well, then does it matter if you go out and you go to the gym 6 days a week and neglect your family to impress these other people at the gym? So the clarity around what matters, combined with the identity of the proper identity of what you want to become and who you see yourself are the cornerstones of discipline, but I don't think anybody ever talks about them. Most people just talk about the cold showers and the add this and add that. But I'm actually a discipline through subtraction kind of guy. Cut away the fluff, cut away the distractions and the toxic temptations and the bad environments and the bad eggs in your life. And success can become much more automatic that way.
Yeah. The clarity piece is important, which, as we opened this up, we talked about that, like, be really intentional with what it is that you want. Like, if you're subconsciously have told yourself, like, man, I'm just a lazy person. Like, maybe you don't have to say it outward. So if you're subconsciously telling yourself, I'm a lazy person, or I'm the kind of person that kind of gives up, I've got no work ethic, that gives up easily, then you will always show up lazy. You will always show up and give up when things get a little tough. If you start saying that my identity is that I'm going to be a disciplined human, I'm going to be a disciplined woman, I'm going to be a disciplined man. Once you take on that identity, now you have to do the things that discipline requires. And discipline doesn't care if you're tired. You're tired? Do it anyway, right? Discipline says, oh, you don't feel good. Well, do it anyway. Discipline says, it's raining outside and it's cold and it's windy. Do it anyway. It becomes the identity. I'm a disciplined man. To do anything outside of what a disciplined man would do makes me an irresponsible man, makes me a weak man. And I don't want to be an irresponsible, weak man because our country already has too many of those, which is why we're eroding as a country. And so the identity change, along with the clarity of what you want to, like, how do you want to be seen? How do you want to show up? Like, not everyone has to show up as Ed Milet and Tim Grover and Andy Frisella. Show up as the version of you that you want to show up with. True story, funny story. This was 2 years ago. We were in Hawaii every Christmas. We go to Hawaii, Maui. And so sometime in late December, and Ed calls me. And he's like, hey, brother. I'm like, what's up, Ed? He goes, all of you know this. You know that Ed Milet sounds like Macho Man Randy Savage, don't you? Like, let's be honest. Ed Milet and Macho Man Randy Savage might be the same dude. But so Ed calls me. He's like, hey, brother, what's going on? I'm like, hey, man, we're in Hawaii having a good time. You know, Merry Christmas. So he's like, hey, man, I'm getting a new jet, and I thought of you because I was just wondering if maybe you want to pick up my old jet before I sell it on the market, if you want to pick it up. I was like, well, you know, the age that my kids are at, I want to spend more time with them. So I actually raised my speaking fee to $50,000 and raised my coaching fee to $100,000 so that I spend more time with my kids. And if I am speaking somewhere, when I do get a coaching client, it really justifies that pay. I go, and in fact, that's why I spent over $3 million to build out my private gym, whereas I don't want to have a private jet that's going to whisk me away from my family. I go every night, you know this, Ed, me and my family go to my private gym and we work out barefoot and have a good time and do our thing. He goes, brother, that's what I like about you. He goes, you know exactly what you want and you do exactly what you need to. Now, the idea, if the old me 15 years ago would have been like, hell yeah, I want a private gym, just like I bought all those watches that I never wear because I thought watches were status. Which now I've got all these the gizmos that move my watches around because they're all automatic watches. And they're all high-end watches or timepieces, whatever the fuck you want to call them. And I'll give them to Andrew when he's older and he wants to sell them, he can, and wear them, he can. But the point is, now I know what I want in life. And so I don't want a private jet, I want private gyms where my kids and I can work out and have a good time. And then did you see the golf cart that we have in the back?
No, I didn't see it.
We've got a badass Project golf cart where we lifted, got some off-road tires. So we'll go driving the golf cart in the dirt pit in the back of the gym, you know, out there. And so I'm so sure of what I want in life, automatically my brain subtracts, going back to what you do, subtracts all the things I don't need. Yeah. And the thing I don't want and I don't need is a private jet to whisk me away from my family. Now, if I want to get on a jet because I don't want to wear a mask and I don't want to necessarily go through TSA, we just charter a jet as a family or a speaking event and off I go. But it's so important to be able to decide who is it that you are, be very specific about what you want, be intentional about becoming that person, and then all of a sudden you're disciplined and you're like, look at me. I'm an example to humanity.
What do you guys do at the project to help guys who come to the project who are, know that they need to become better versions of themselves? What exercises do you do there without giving the whole thing?
Yeah, so I've never shared this with you, and I think it's time we share this publicly. The project, even though it's 75 hours long, right around hour number 36, there's a 3-hour window starting at hour number 36, that goes to hour number 39, and then once again in hour number 51, 52, 53 is another 3-hour window. And there's a journaling exercise we do for those 6 hours. So it's 3-hour block, 3-hour block. There's a journaling exercise called the toxic cognitions, where we help identify, the first sentence of that journaling exercise is, the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life is this. And I've done it, so I read off. I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to be very vulnerable here, and this is going to be worse than the drowning in the ocean with the Navy SEAL, then the ice baths, then the log PT, then crawling in the pit for miles at a time. This is going to be like your heart's about to tear out of your chest because you're going to have to admit things if you want to heal and change your identity, take off the false identity. And so that first sentence is, the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life is, and then I read mine. I was molested by 2 older boys in Armenia when I was between the ages of 4 and 6. And I read that to them, and they're like, fuck, I got to write that down. But at this point, the reason we do it so late into the project, hour number 36, now strange men over 36 hours now have become brothers.
Sure.
Because every evolution that's so physically demanding could only get done when I help you and you help me. And soon, we're calling each other brothers. We're now best friends because there's no way I'm going to cross the finish line or you're going to cross the finish line without each other. So now sitting there and going, being beat up, I could admit anything in front of you and no one's going to, I'm not worried about it. So we go through that. And then the next sentence is, and that has put on this false identity on me where I feel I need to do this. Maybe I gamble, maybe I drink, prostitutes, whatever it is, right? I make promises and I don't follow through. I start businesses and I just collapse them. I self-sabotage in these ways. So the toxic and there's several other sentences that I don't want to have to go into in the journaling exercise. But so part 1 is identifying the toxic cognitions and what false identities it's put on you. Mm-hmm. And then each guy talks about it and how it shows up in their life and how it limits their growth and how they upper limit in their faith, their family, their fitness, their finances. The second block of that, the second part of that is the superpowers. What we don't realize is what bad thing happened to us also can give us superpowers. Mm-hmm. For me, it's given me the superpower of compassion and empathy. For many, many years, Di called me the Pied Piper of broken men. She goes, I don't understand why emotionally hurt and injured men come and find you and glom onto you and want to be your friend and want to work with you and want to partner up with you, et cetera. And I never understood either. Over the years, I understood. I just give off so much compassion and empathy towards men. And as I healed, the more I give off that radiance. It's like a light bulb that you can just turn up the radiance, right? And it's I'm like a beacon for men for that. And so, and in a weird sideways way, you kind of said something similar when years ago you're like, oh, you're like that guy from the Green Mile who just sucks in everyone's problems, right? And well, I'm able to do that because as I healed through my problems, I'm able to kind of be available for other people through empathy and compassion. And so, but had that not happened to me, I would not have been an empathetic, compassionate person. That is a superpower that I have, and through that superpower, I'm able to make these impacts. Yeah. And so the second part of the journaling is that. So my new identity is that I'm a weapon for good through compassion and empathy. And we help these men identify their new superpower that they got from this bad thing that happened to them. And then we go, now, a man who has that superpower, how does he show up? What does his daily routine look like? How does he show up to his wife? How does he show up during an argument? How does he show up when he makes a decision? When he makes a promise, is he there? And all of a sudden, oh shit, yeah, that's how this guy shows up. And so when the worst thing in your life that's ever happened to you has been reframed as a superpower, you have a whole new identity, bro. It's game on. You're like a rocket ship.
Yeah, and I coach some people that have gone through the project, and I've just seen the transformation that they have made. Totally different, totally able to withstand so much more, not just physical stress, but mental and emotional stress. Mm-hmm. They're level-headed when most people would either bury their head in the sand or just have their head pop right off or something like that. Yeah. So it's super powerful.
So it's not like we're beating discipline into them at the project. We're literally helping them create an identity of a man who is disciplined.
So I joked around earlier about, you don't have to add the cold baths and all that sort of stuff, but what is the role of physical discomfort, physical challenges in building discipline that lasts?
There is a functional purpose to adversity and suffering. Yeah. It's within adversity and suffering that we discover the highest version of ourselves. And the reason that happens, people go, well, why can't I just meditate and discover the highest version of myself? When you are put against, never mind a marathon, like a triathlon, an ultra marathon, where your just knees and hips hurt. Last December 5th, I call it Suckfest. It was Suckfest number 1. We stayed up 24 hours, and then we we walked from sundown till sunup.
Yeah.
Without any training for it.
Got it.
And I said, whoever wants to come do it with me, like your feet aren't going to be ready, your hips aren't going to be ready, but that's the idea. It's going to suck, and we just walk until the sun comes up. We got 37 miles in 13 hours. Wow. And it was 5 of us from HQ who did it. The next Suck Fest is coming up in like late November, and it's going to be a horrible one. Again, it's like sleep. So you haven't slept, now you're going to do something tough. It's just repetitive over and over again for a period of time until you cover a marathon. But anyway, that's when you do that, when you're in a place of like physical torture, ice bath, pulling a truck for an unknown distance, hiking with like logs and shit until you don't know where the 75 hours started and ended because you've just been so deprived of time and sleep. And we put them down for a 2-hour nap here in the middle of the day, but then we wake them up with like flashbang grenades only to put them back down an hour later when they're like adrenaline dumping. We do that to disorient them. But when you're in that moment of pain and suffering, you have to disassociate. And your conscious brain goes away and the subconscious brain opens up and starts kind of processing things. You've got your left and right hemisphere of the brain. That brain has had a lot of trauma through life because most humans, 3 out of 4 people, have had some either physical, sexual, emotional abuse that's left them traumatized, that has led to vices. The addictions aren't just addictions. Addictions are a traumatic, are a way of coping and dealing with a traumatic event. And bilateral stimulation, meaning accessing both sides of your brain, allows you to then process through that pain for the first time ever in your life. So everything we do, other than the ice bath, you're hiking, running, crawling, and there's a rhythmic thing to it. And that's called EMDR in psychological. You've heard of EMDR? Tick, 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 bilateral stimulation. That's why when you're riding a bike, you're running and jogging, you're doing repetitions of whatever, you start having all these aha moments and you solve all your problems. People go, I feel good when I work out. It's not just the endorphins. You solve your problems because you recruit the left and right side of your brain to solve through a problem or a traumatic event that hasn't been solved for many, many years, if not decades. All this to say that when you go into an ice bath and you have to disassociate, go away from your body mentally, you go into a place where you can now start accessing a higher level of discipline, a higher level of realizing like a dial on a thermostat, like holy smokes, the glass ceiling on my tolerance for stress, for pain, for having an angry Marine and Navy SEAL yelling at you, telling you did something wrong when you know you did it right and you did it with plenty of time to spare. But we create an environment where that kind of pain, that's emotional pain. You're not doing anything physical there. They're just yelling and screaming at you and you just have to sit there and disassociate and go away. And where you go away is to an area where you can actually start processing things and access the higher self, the radiance that we all have within. And I look at radiance, like I said, as this imagine this orb of light. And when you were born, it was so bright because you were curious and there was no trauma and you were willing to explore because you weren't worried about rejection. It was this bright light. And then all of a sudden, abuse, debt, rejection, it's like putting black handkerchiefs. If you give me a stack of black handkerchiefs and throughout your life, I just throw these black handkerchiefs on this beautiful source of light. After so many layers of black handkerchiefs, we've just lost the access to radiance. Mm-hmm. And that access might be someone telling you that you're clumsy. You're stupid. You don't do well in school. You're just barely going to be a wrench turner. That becomes their identity. And so how is someone who's got a false identity, who walks around the world with a false identity that I'm clumsy, I'm goofy, I don't follow through with my promises, ever going to have any discipline? So the suffering is necessary to be able to disassociate from your body and go away to a place that you can't access in your brain unless you're suffering. This is why people in concentration camps during World War II, the Jews in concentration camps were able to build such tough, high levels of resiliency because when they were made to dig holes barefoot in the cold, only to then refill those holes by nighttime and then to redig them again the next morning, If you start thinking about that, it'll drive you mad. You have to mentally disassociate and start going to this beautiful place in your brain where you could just access radiance. And when you access radiance, a whole new level of self develops.
Wow, I don't think we've ever gotten this deep on the show here. Now, clearly, the environment and the people around you are key in the discipline. You know, when those people those men in the project are going through it together. What's the power of accountability there, like your brotherhood after, and then how do they stay strong when they're on their own?
Yeah, and so like all humans, we can't be strong all the time. Like during COVID, 2020, just after, March, April, May, June, I was like, yeah, we're going to get out of this. We're going to be fine as a franchise. As we lost 100, 150, 180 locations, my text messages to you were very different. I'm like, dude, I'm drinking a couple cocktails every night. My workouts are suffering because of it. I'm not sleeping well at night. We check in on each other, and I wasn't in the best frame of mind. I gave myself grace to be that. Like, you're not always going to be in the best frame of mind during war. Or as our friend Jason Redmond says, when there's a life ambush, don't go sitting on the X. But when the ambush is happening, you're not going to be your best self. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to yell and scream and panic and get chaotic, as long as you're working towards an outcome. And so the beautiful thing about these guys holding each other to their promises of staying disciplined in life, disciplined in their marriage, disciplined in their business, disciplined in their fitness and their faith. And the faith isn't just like a higher power, God, Allah, the universe. It's discipline of like, do you have faith in yourself, confidence in yourself that you will execute and keep the promises that you made? Like, that's a high power of faith, man. And so every Friday we have a check-in on the private Facebook group that we have, and all 9 classes. In fact, tomorrow the class 10 starts of the project, biggest class yet. And every Friday we do a check-in, and every guy does a little video and go, hey man, here's where I am in my faith, family, fitness, and finance, and here's where I'm struggling. And by the way, here's some awesome things that have happened to me. And if anyone wants to know how I made this extra $300,000 in the last 30 days, reach out to me and I'll let you know. But I'm struggling in this one area of life. And so like any kind of self-help group, the brotherhood comes together, the network, right? We talked about earlier in the previous podcast, like the people that you surround yourself with are the people that you become like. Mm-hmm. And so I might be going through a phase of life where I'm just like being crushed in, let's say, fitness. You might have fitness dialed in right now because you just do. Everyone has winning and losing phases of life.
Sure.
And so you're in that brotherhood. You're going to reach out to me and be like, "Hey, B, let's talk, man. Here's what I'm doing." No one says go in there and do this high, badass, crazy, intense program. But how about you just go walk outside, take your shirt off, and walk under the sun, and feel that the vitamin D for just 3 miles, and listen to some Joe Rogan entertaining podcast, not a marketing podcast. Like, you know what, Craig? Thank you, because in my head I've got the bar set so high that if I can't do my hardcore tough guy workout, when I'm at my best, I could do that. But otherwise, I'm not going to be able to. So I just go, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
But if my buddy's like, hey, man, how about this? And then text me when you're done. So now I'm being held accountable to a friend. There's that level of accountability. And so sometimes when discipline gets crippled because of a life ambush, and we're on the X, I've got my battle buddy, and that's what we call it. My battle buddy's like, hey, man, listen, just go do this instead. Mm-hmm. Give yourself, exercise a little bit of grace, self-grace, and then call me or text me when you're done so we know that there's accountability.
Got it.
And I do that a few times, and then discipline starts ramping right back up again.
Got it. Well, I mean, that is super powerful. And then that spreads to, from the physical and mental discipline, it spreads to the discipline at home with the family.
Yeah.
And the family sees you operating at a different level. And then their confidence and discipline grows, and they feel in a more safer environment. And then that discipline is transferred into the business. And everybody in the business sees, wow, the owner, the boss, the CEO, he or she is doing stuff that, they're taking their game to the next level. And I already thought they were at the next level. Now they're going to the next level. And then I'm going to step up my game. And the discipline and the confidence just radiates around you when you go and build it for yourself.
That's exactly it. And so I think everyone needs to realize that discipline is like a rubber band. It stretches, right? It stretches. Sometimes it's like really, really tough and really flexed and you're good to go. Other times it's a little flimsy. It's a little flimsy and that's okay. But do you know what you need to do to get it strong again? Do you have the right people around you that you can lean on and go, hey, bud, I need a little bit of help in this area without feeling like you might reject me or I might feel like less of a man or less of a woman if I reach out? And I think that's important. Whether it's someone does the project or not doesn't matter to me. What matters is that they are disciplined in areas of their life they know they need to be. And all of that starts off by shedding the false identity and putting on a new identity of the man that you are or the woman that you want to be, and then start living that life. It's literally that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Simple, not easy.
Simple, not easy.
But simple. Awesome.
Let's wrap it up.
Yep.
Guys and gals, thank you so much for watching this episode of the project.
This advertisement for the project has been brought to you by the project.
The project. I got a project on the mind. Guys, seriously though, thank you for watching and listening to this episode of The Empire Show. As you guys know, I'm fiercely passionate about the project, and it's something that I want to help every single man on the planet with, and that is my goal to do. And so if you got any value out of this episode, please do me and Craig a favor and leave us a 5-star review on the iTunes, a awesome comment, and of course, take a screenshot and share it on social media. Talk to you guys later.